Okay, so tell me more about yourself and how you got involved in the disability community.
Yes, hi. My name is Nicole Jorwic, and I got involved in the disability community actually from really the beginning of my life. I talk a lot with my brother's permission about my brother Chris, but actually my connection to disability started before Chris was even born. I was in the first classroom in my school district a long, long time ago that was inclusive. So my friend Sam has cerebral palsy, and he was in my class when we were 5. And my mom was actually pregnant with my brother at the time. So I've been really lucky that disability and inclusion has been part of the fabric of my life from before I even knew what anything meant. And so I got more and more involved throughout my life. I was a direct care worker before I went to law school. That was all the jobs that I did through high school and college, and law school was direct care work, either in camps or classrooms or other settings. And then I went to law school and practiced special education law before I got into the policy side of things. So I've been part of it from the very beginning and have been really lucky to touch different facets of the disability community and the work of the disability community.
Mm-hmm. What sorts of things do you do in the policy realm?
Yeah, in the policy world, I started off as the executive director of a nonprofit in the state of Illinois called the Institute on Public Policy for People with Disabilities. And so worked with providers that were more visionary and really looking to promote best practices around services for people with disabilities. So I have experience in policy very around home and community-based services. That's, I think, what my probably greatest area of expertise is around access to home and community-based services, access to long-term supports and services, and that includes the workforce issues. And so I have been involved at the state level in getting policy through the governor's office and through the legislature. And at the federal level for almost 8 years, I've been working on policy at the federal level. So both working on administrative policy and also obviously on legislation, really, again, very specifically around home and community-based services, but I've also worked on employment for people with disabilities. That's a really big and important passion of mine. So employment policy has always been an important part of the policy work that I do as well.
Mm-hmm. I understand that you're also in the advocacy world as well, if you could talk about that.
Yes, advocacy work and sometimes advocacy work can be a catch-all term. When I think of advocacy work, I really think of mobilizing folks and also of, campaigning and making sure that we're winning on the issues and not just the policy. And so I got more involved in that through the work at the ARC when I was at the ARC of the United States for about 7 years. And so really making sure that advocates on the ground, grassroots advocates, disabled people, people who support disabled people, have a better understanding of the issues so that they can be better advocates and stronger advocates and move beyond their story to really demand and request action. So there's been a lot of different points that I can think of, including most recently what just wrapped up, is wrapping up late last night and today around Medicaid advocacy and making sure that people have the access to the services that they need. And in 2017, we did a lot of different advocacy tactics to prevent against cuts to Medicaid. So a lot of my advocacy and campaigning work really surrounds access to services and better pay for workers. And that includes everything from also during the COVID attempt to get a lot more money. We did a 24-hour vigil where we read stories in front of the Capitol of people who need these services. So I could give a lot of examples, but that's kind of the broad strokes of the advocacy work.
Mm-hmm. What are the main stakeholders that you partner with in disability policy? And also, are there any stakeholders that you work with outside of disability policy?
Yeah, I work with a lot of folks, and if I started to make I'll list some, but if I'm starting to make a list, always makes me anxious because I know there's folks that I've left out. I've been really lucky that when I came into the work in DC about 8 years ago, everyone was so generous with their time and with their expertise. I obviously started at the ARC of the United States. So even though I'm with Caring Across Generations now, and I have been for over 1.5 years, we still partner a lot with the ARC. We partner a lot with AAPD, or the American Association for People with Disabilities, the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network, Bazelon Center for Mental Health Law, and we do a lot of our work through coalitions as well. And so we do, I co-chair the Consortium for Constituents with Disabilities, LTSS Task Force. So there's lots of other groups that are involved there. Also the Disability and Aging Collaborative. So again, all of the members of those coalitions are groups that I partner with on a regular basis. And, you know, Little Lobbyists is a really important advocacy group that represents children with disabilities and critical health needs. In terms of outside of the disability community, some of that I mentioned the Disability and Aging Collaborative. So I collaborate a lot with different aging organizations, Justice and Aging, even AARP, Leading Age, the National Council on Aging, and also a lot of labor advocates. I think what I'm probably I don't know what I'm known for, but something that I am known for is working really closely with the disability community, the aging community, and also the labor community. So SEIU, even sometimes AFSCME, and the National Domestic Workers Alliance, and really figuring out how we can come to compromise points at different times, because groups sometimes didn't talk to each other, which also meant that, like, I think that well-intentioned things, for example, from the labor movement, had negative impacts on the disability community that they just didn't even know about. And so making sure that folks are sitting down before we're at the point of disagreement is really what I try to do. And also outside of the disability community, and also aging and labor, although they're all included in this as well, I lead the Care Can't Wait Coalition. So we work with a lot of other care groups. So a lot of groups that are focused on women's issues, groups that are focused on childcare, groups that are focused on paid leave, are also other advocates and stakeholders that I work with.
My next question is, like, how do you ensure that people with disabilities have the rights and services that they need to be, you know, independent and self-sufficient from a policy perspective?
Yeah, I mean, from ensuring that people with disabilities know about their rights is incredibly important, and they have the rights already, right? The Supreme Court decision, for example, the Supreme Court in the Olmstead decision said that people have a right to community-based services, an example. And obviously the Americans with Disabilities Act allows for the right for people to have employment. The right turning into actual services and supports is where we have a lot of issues. So I think it's important to make sure that disabled people know their rights, know what they should have access to and what they might not, and then encourage them and empower them to, and work alongside them to get there, to get to the second part of that, which is the services that folks need to be independent and self-sufficient. That can include home and community-based services. It also can include the appropriate AAC device, the appropriate home improvements. It's not just about HCBS, although or home and community-based services, but a lot of it is. And so it's about both making sure that, again, that disabled people themselves have the knowledge and understanding that they need about what's available and what their rights are, and then making sure that we can fight to expand these services in Congress. That's the way to assure that people have the services that they need, is to pass and invest more money into these systems, because the only way that folks, no matter their level of support need, are going to get to the independence and self-sufficiency is with a robust system that doesn't leave people behind.
Yep. Lastly, how can disability policy, you know, be a catalyst for change and sort of make a difference in people's lives?
Yeah, well, I mean, disability policy has always been, well, first of all, every policy area has a disability angle, whether it's being discussed or not. And so I think disability policy can be a catalyst for change in that way. I mean, there's so many things that disability advocates fought for that ultimately help more than just the disability community. Even some of the physical accommodations from the Americans with Disabilities Act help people with strollers, help people with older adults with mobility issues. And so, I mean, disability policy is literally a catalyst for change for more than just the disability community. And it makes a difference in people's lives, because the more disability policy that we have that ensures that people have the independence and self-sufficiency that they need, means that more disabled people are going to be in this world. And that makes a difference in everyone's lives, because community integration is something that's incredibly important to me. And the term integration is from the Latin word integrare, which means to make whole. And when I think about the policy work that we do, the advocacy work that we do, and the change that we're ultimately pushing for, it's that each individual has the services that they need to feel like they're a whole person, but also ultimately it's about our communities being whole, because people with disabilities can be full participants in the community.
Yep.